Kunekune. It's one of the most famous legends to come out of the Nichan boards, and there are a few horror fans who haven't heard of it. The story describes something white in the distance, far out in the rice fields, waving and wriggling, like its Japanese name suggests. Seeing it from a distance is frightening enough, but if you see it up close, the mere sight will drive you insane. This particular creepypasta was first posted in 2001 under the title, "You're Better Off Not Knowing." Another story was then posted in 2003 that basically expanded upon the original but didn't make too many changes. This one was simply titled Kunekune, and it was here that the legend really took off. Numerous stories of this mysterious creature have been posted over the years, including what fans call the Kunekune 7, a collection of 7 stories that Nichan users consider to be the main bulk of the creature's legend. But who, or what, is Kunekune exactly? Could it be a real creature? To start, it's important to delve into the information the Kunekune 7 provides us with. These stories are interesting because of how wide and varied they are. These stories are not told by the same author. Every single one is different. Perhaps the most important thing is how Kunekune is described. In stories 1, 2, 3, and 5, the creature is described as being white in appearance. In 4, it's described as black. In 7, the creature isn't seen by the author at all. And in 6, perhaps the biggest exception in every way to the rest of the stories, Kunekune is described as a young male runner. The majority of the time it seems to be white, but even this isn't fully agreed upon. Other than its white appearance, Kunekune is most easily distinguishable by its strange waving and wriggling, like one of those balloons you see outside car dealerships that wildly wave their arms around in the air. This is seen in stories 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, the creature isn't seen in 7, so it's impossible to say. And it could be argued that the runner in story 6 does fit the strange movements the creature is known for, but it's still not quite the same as the others. Still, this is the one trait that every story seems to agree upon, and for good reason. Kunekune literally means to wave, to squirm, or to wriggle in Japanese. Without that, the creature just isn't Kunekune. It also seems to appear in a variety of environments. It's seen in rice fields, which is perhaps the most common location, but it's also been seen at the beach, in a quarry, and even in the city. At the very least, this tells us that the creature can freely move around and isn't tied to one spot. It's also interesting to note that Kunekune is most often tied to Akita Prefecture, as the first stories placed it there. But it's not necessarily stuck there. It can apparently appear anywhere in Japan. Lastly, and the aspect of Kunekune that makes it so dangerous, it's said that merely looking upon the creature is enough to drive you insane. This happens in every story except for 6, the exception to most rules. The extent of the madness differs somewhat, however. Most agree that just seeing the creature in the distance isn't enough. You need to see it up close. More importantly, you need to see it clearly. If you have bad eyesight, then you are, for the most part, safe. But the creature doesn't have to be right in front of you for this to work. If you grab some binoculars to check it out in the distance, that's enough. You've now lost your sanity. The key point here seems to be seeing the creature both up close and clearly. Once these two conditions are met, sanity is lost. From this we can piece together a somewhat general picture of the creature and its habitat. It's most famous for appearing in rice fields, but it can appear anywhere. Just like its name, it squiggles and squirms, dances and wriggles. And while it's most often white, it can appear as other colors as well. And perhaps even most confusingly, it can look just like a real person. So, what is it? One common theory is that it's nothing more than a mirage, an illusion, a hallucination. Think about a hot summer day. When you look out over the horizon, you can see what looks like waves wafting off the ground. Some have suggested that Kunekune is nothing more than that. Perhaps a real person, a scarecrow, or some type of human shape in the distance that appears to be wriggling in the heat. But if it's just an illusion, then how does seeing it drive you mad? Again, it's been suggested that this could be happening because of heat stroke. None of the Kunekune 7 are told during the cold months. In fact, almost every single one of them specifically mentions summer, or the hotter months of the year. Even in 6, the exception to most Kunekune rules, the runner is covered in sweat from the heat. Yet, in story 3, Kunekune approaches during a typhoon. The author is inside at the time, and while it does take place during the summer holidays, they're unlikely to be suffering from heat stroke at the time. This is yet another exception, and why it's so difficult for people to agree exactly on what Kunekune is. If it's not a hallucination brought on by impending heat stroke, then what else could it be? Perhaps the easiest explanation is that it's an unknown cryptid, or more likely, an unknown yokai. Yokai were created to explain all sorts of unexplainable phenomena, after all. Creatures like the kamaitachi, a weasel with sickles for hands, were created to explain the strange phenomena of being cut by a whirlwind that otherwise made no sense. In that same vein, perhaps Kunekune is a modern yokai to explain impending heat stroke, or the strange heat waves distorting images in the distance. Another explanation as to what Kunekune may be, or at the very least, what may have inspired the story, is that it's nothing more than a scarecrow. Just not the type of scarecrow that we think of today. According to various legends, long ago real people were used as scarecrows in rice fields. People who were considered not very useful to the community. They were tied to large posts in the ground, and their wriggling and squirming while trying to escape would frighten the nearby wildlife. Perhaps Kunekune was one of those people, eventually transformed by rage into the creature we know it as today. Kunekune comes with a lot of inconsistencies, making it hard to really pin down what the creature may potentially be. At best, almost everyone agrees that it looks like a waving, dancing figure, and that seeing it up close drives you mad. But even then, there are stories about it that don't feature either of these aspects. And people are still writing stories about it today, adding to the already rich and confusing mythology behind it. Seeing as we don't know who the original author of the story is, it's hard to say for certain what exactly inspired them, or what they truly intended Kunekune to be. Is it a yokai? Is it a spirit? Is it some other type of unknown cryptid? This lack of information is undoubtedly by design, because all good creepypastas leave you wanting more, and this one does well not to spell out every bit of information regarding its main monster. But what do you guys think Kunekune really is? Why has it become such an enduring legend nearly 20 years later that we still don't fully understand? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.